Okay, welcome everyone to the Validator community call, March 30th, 2023. Agenda tonight, going to do some Validator updates, talk a little bit about suggestions in mainnet beta, so a reminder of the mainnet rollout plan with a little bit of tweaks from what we talked about earlier. Then an update on the Validator gated link roles. This is the Discord bot for keeping track of if you're actually running a Validator or not. And then some time for open discussion if people want to bring up other topics. First of all, there's a update to testnet. So 1.13.7 is now recommended for testnet. A call also went out maybe 4 or 5 hours ago to bring 33% of the network on testnet up to 1.14.17. So the goal here is to run testnet in a state where we've got some, I don't want to say uncertainty, but some interoperability testing to be done, right? So if we have about 33% of stake on 114 and then the rest on 113, ideally we'll be able to catch more bugs than just having the entire cluster on 1.13, which is, hasn't really resulted in many new bugs and is operating fine as is. So the idea here is we upgrade to 114 and hopefully run into some new errors on testnet before it happens on mainnet. Yeah, so that's the general idea. This isn't the beginning of the rollout plan for mainnet. So there's no timeline right now on when the mainnet rollout is going to happen for 1.14. But the general plan is once 1.14 is stabilized, we feel like it's ready for mainnet, we're going to go through the entire rollout process on testnet first. So testnet goes 100% 1.13. Then we do the same thing that we do on mainnet. So we take 10% of stake to 114, 25% of stake to 114, and then 100% of stake to 114. And as that happens, obviously we monitor the cluster, make sure it's healthy, make sure there's no issues. Assuming that whole process goes well, we do the same process again on mainnet. So this is kind of the piece that we haven't been doing much on, or we haven't done it all on testnet that hopefully should uncover bugs that we wouldn't have uncovered otherwise. Yeah, Zantetsu, go ahead.
I haven't been following that channel where there was debugging of the issue of the most recent downtime.
Yeah.
I remember that it kind of went silent, and I think the implication was that it was still being discussed, but behind, sort of closed doors because that was needed for safety.
Yeah.
Has that issue been resolved?
No, not fully. So I think it'll be resolved when 1.14 gets onto mainnet. There's some aspects of the investigation that I think they find sensitive and don't want to discuss in public. So that's the reason for keeping it outside of the Discord chat. But there'll be a full sort of postmortem once 1.14 makes it to mainnet, so we can discuss the issue a little bit more openly.
So, but I mean, why wouldn't we wait on testnet until that's fixed so that on testnet we're rolling forward to the fixed version and thus ensuring as much as testnet can that the fixed version doesn't cause a problem or, during this rollout process? Does that make sense?
Not quite. So you're saying wait for what on testnet?
Well, if there's a fix coming for whatever that most recent issue was, which I thought is what you just said, if that isn't in 114 yet, then if we roll forward to this version of 114, we're going to be rolling forward on and testing this upgrade on a version that isn't even the version that we're going to roll forward with on mainnet, because the one on mainnet will have a very significant fix in it that we apparently won't have tested in this rollout process here. Does that make sense?
Right. So sorry for the confusion. What I'm saying here is once a 1.14 version is identified as the one that we have a fix for and we want to push to mainnet, then we'll go through this whole process. So that's assuming like it might be 1.14.17, it might be 1.14.18, whatever version number that ends up being, then we'll take 100% of testnet to 1.13 and go through the whole upgrade process from 13 to 14 on testnet first before we do it on mainnet.
Oh, so we're going to do an upgrade on testnet to 114 and then back again to 114 and then back again to 114. Is that, oh, yeah, okay. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe that wasn't super clear. Right now we are on 1.13.7 and we are asking 33% of stake to be on 1.14. that is not the mainnet rollout plan, and that's not like preparing for the mainnet rollout. The point of that is just ideally to catch interoperability bugs, right? Because having the entire cluster on 1.13 is not giving us a ton of information on testnet right now. You know, yesterday is about the same information as today. So ideally, if we get to this state where there's potential for consensus issues or something else coming up where 33% of the cluster's on one miner version and 66 is on the other, that's the hope, at least, that we have more information out of it and, you know, maybe catch a bug that we wouldn't have caught otherwise. But yeah, once we are ready and we've identified the version that we want to roll out, we're going to go through this whole process again. So take the cluster down, take it back up again. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, very much so. Sorry, I didn't get what you said before. It makes sense.
No. That's good clarification. Thanks. Checking if there's questions here. Can we do longer 1.14 onboarding, something like? Yeah. So there's a question in chat about the steps 10, 25, and then 100%. Why don't we do 10, 25, 40, 45, then 100? That's a good suggestion. I think the reason for that is the jump over 33%. There's not a lot of value once we get to that point, because there will be periods where we're at 50, 60, et cetera, until we get up to 100%. But we could, since we have a little bit more of a guiding hand on testnet to get stake to upgrade, we could maybe do that process a little slower. So yeah, I think it's something we'll consider. I think it might be nice to have testnet running in that weird dual version state where neither version gets a supermajority. These kinds of rollouts just to make sure nothing destabilizes when the situation happens. Yeah, okay, so Soblaze had a similar comment to keep it in a weird state where we've got maybe 50-50 or something like that. Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's something I'll take back to the engineering team. I think we will definitely be in that state for some period of time, but we can sort of ensure that it happens for longer than, you know, just the upgrade process. Any more questions on those two, the current setup on testnet and then the eventual rollout plan? Okay, cool. So switching gears to the Discord bot. So this, if you haven't been keeping up with this, there was the desire after the most recent restart to have a channel that is gated just to staked validators so that we can eliminate some noise and then also have some idea of how stake is choosing to go. If they want to restart or if they want to, whatever actions they want to take during a restart, it'd be a little less noisy and a little bit more focused. So the initial sort of discussion was happening in this project validator gated roles channel in Discord. John Wong, who's on the foundation team, put out this doc with some requirements and sort of got feedback from the community. So open this up. It's been updated today to incorporate some of the feedback from the community-led validator call that happened last week. So I encourage you all to read through this. I'll put this in the channel as well. And give any feedback if you're interested in this project. Key takeaways here are there was some discussion about RPC operators and them also wanting to have a voice in this channel. So there's an addition added for RPC operators and essentially a way to like vouch for an RPC operator. If you're a voting validator and you're in the channel, you can vouch for them to also be part of the channel. And there was a question in MB Validators about whether or not this is going to be open source. The answer is yes, it will be open source. It'll be on Realms and open source for, you know, for contributions. So there was another discussion in that channel about also adding the ability to vote in the channel. So I think, once this initial V0 is out and make sure it works properly and that everyone can get their assigned roles, then voting could be the next step. So that's the gist. Any questions on that?
I have a question. May I ask?
Yeah, go for it.
If I remember from the meeting that we had in the community meeting, I didn't ask these questions. I didn't want to belay, the discussion, and maybe I shouldn't ask here for that same reason.
No,
but I do remember that the design that was proposed included like having to go to some other website to like set, to validate that your validator is, that you're really a validator. Why isn't that just done by Discord commands? Like I should be able to just type /validate myself, and then it should emit, the bot should emit some text for me to sign, and then I should paste it back via command. And like, why would I even have to go to a third-party website? Or like, maybe I should be bringing this up with them, but I really feel like doing it all through Discord just seems like it would be simpler.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it'll be easier. I don't know the trade-offs or why John chose to implement it this way. So yeah, I would say give him feedback on the doc. I think with HackMD, you could actually leave comments, but if not, I could either facilitate the conversation or just have that conversation in the Discord channel.
All right. Well, I mean, does anybody else have an opinion on that? Because I don't want to be the only person like bugging him about it. I mean, does anybody else care? It just seems to me like if we're going to trust Discord as, the communication mechanism, then let's trust it for this purpose also and not involve some other site that has its own potential trust issues. I don't know
and it also seems. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it just also seems simpler to have it all go through Discord.
Yeah, I think the only thing that went through a site was the authentication piece, if I remember correctly. So essentially, you have to connect your account to the bot, and then you do some sort of auth. But I'm not super familiar with the implementation, so I don't know what exactly needs to happen there.
Okay, thanks. I guess I'll take this up on this document instead of bringing it up here.
Fair enough. Question.
But if anybody wants to encourage me in this, please let me know, because otherwise it's just me out there.
No, I think it's good feedback, and I don't have a good answer for you, so I'd suggest talking to John. Is it Naor? I'm not sure I pronounced your name.
Yeah, that's good pronunciation. So I have a question regarding the validating the validator itself. So what are we going to do with validator that is running multiple nodes, and what we're going to do with validators that are not willing to come forward and publish themselves?
Yeah, so this is opt-in. Of course, you don't have to go through this process. I suppose if you have somebody that could vouch for you, you could use a different key and get vouched that way. But yeah, I mean, you could also just choose not to participate. The only requirement here is that you sign a message using a curl, I think a post. So if you look here, send a curl command to this API to verify that you can sign a challenge message. And that, I don't know exactly what gets stored there. So that might be a question for like what we're actually saving in the bot. But I also don't know what your privacy concerns are there. Zantetsu, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I thought about the first issue that you mentioned, which is what happens when an operator runs multiple validators. I mean, I didn't propose this, but I hope that the logical thing that will be chosen in the design is that you can, validate your account for multiple validators, and that there will be some way to identify via a bot command that this particular Discord user ID is affiliated with these particular validators, and that when there is any vote implementation, that user would then be allowed to vote for all three, or all N, I should say. I don't know, but honestly, great questions to bring up with the person that wrote this this design, and make sure that they are considering these things before they go too far forward. In terms of the second thing, what about people who don't identify themselves? I mean, I don't know. What can you say? I mean, it's just a Discord handle. So I guess when you sign up for Discord, you have to provide a phone number to be able to get into the Solana Tech Discord. That's pretty much the only KYC kind of thing that you provide. Aside from that, it's just an anonymous ID that you can put anything you want to. And if someone runs a validator and they really don't want to identify themselves in any way, shape, or form, then I guess they don't have a communication channel, would never be able to have a communication channel, period, because they have no way to communicate without identifying themselves. So
yeah, I mean,
just not luck.
I could understand some concerns if you were running a validator as a service and you don't want competitors or people in the ecosystem to know how much stake that you've got. I assume the solution there would just be don't validate multiple validators, just use one.
But you could always sign up for multiple Discord user IDs and then
that too.
Associate each of them, just say dummy 1, dummy 2, and dummy 3, or whatever you want to call them. The only problem, like I said, is that whole phone number requirement. And maybe this is something else to bring up. If there's some way to relax that in some way for the people that want to do just this and come on the Discord, if they're willing to, authenticate themselves as validators, then they don't really need to use the phone number method to authenticate themselves with the Discord. So maybe that could be an alternate way.
Yeah, that's possible.
I don't mind providing a phone number. I'm more concerned about attaching my name to a specific validator.
Yeah, could you just make a fake Discord ID? Call it whatever you want, and don't let anybody know that it's you.
But who is using this information about my validator that I'm providing as part of the challenge?
Well, it would only associate whatever Discord ID that you say should be associated with that validator. So if you make up a fake name for your Discord, just make a fake Discord ID to log in with, and then use that to authenticate with your validator, then all that means is that Discord ID will be in Discord via the bot identified as with that validator, but it doesn't identify you personally. Does that make sense?
I see what you're saying, but then I need to manage 2 accounts on Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no perfect solution. That seems like probably the best we can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be the workaround. I mean, I think what Zantetsu said is correct, right? You're not going to actually have to KYC yourself or prove that you are the person who runs the validator. It's just literally signing a message with your pub key, or with your private key. And also to answer the multiple validator question, there's a stretch goal here to add the ability to verify multiple validators. So, that may not be the V1 solution, but it's on the roadmap here.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Just looking through comments in the chat. Yeah, that's a good question. So Soulblaze is asking, is it possible for other people like Solana Labs, foundations, contributors, etc., to join the channel, or will it be strictly node operators? I think that'll be up to whoever creates the channel, right? So you could allow multiple roles in the channel or not. I assume for something like a restart, you'd want at least labs and foundation people in there, probably contributors as well. But that's sort of a community decision. Yep. Blake says he prefer the design without a third-party website. I think that's probably best if it's not too much more work. Removing the phone number verification on a case-by-case basis is that it's built-in Discord security setting. Yeah. So I don't know the challenges with removing the phone number requirement, but I imagine it's probably not something that's going to be easy to do for 1 or 2 people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a moderator, and I used to, back when the Discord had a general channel and we were inundated with spammers and scammers, the phone thing never stopped them anyway. I never saw, like, I don't know how many more there would have been if that was effective, but it certainly wasn't effective enough to prevent there from being thousands of accounts created every day. There was a channel, I don't know if anyone else has access to them or moderators, where you could see new accounts getting created, and they would be created multiple, a second, just all day long. They were just getting spammed in continuously. So whatever it is, it doesn't seem like it stops spammers anyway, or scammers. So I'm not sure what the phone number verification is even doing, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll find out if we turn it off and there's a flood of new bots, but 10 cents for a phone number, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's probably not stopping a lot. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, the TLDR on this discussion is give feedback in project validator gated roles. John Wong, I think, is in that channel, so you could at him probably in daylight hours and give him some feedback. But I think yeah, these are all good points to bring up. Any other questions or thoughts about this? Okay, cool. Azul Dev said he's got a Discord validator controller that he made a few weeks ago. So definitely something to check out. Yeah, links in the chat, and I'll post it in the notes for the video as well. Okay, well, that's all the scheduled stuff I have. Are there any other topics or questions people want to bring up?
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So normally I wouldn't do this, but I posted the question to some of my delegators, and I asked about Jito specific stuff, and their most pointed question was, what is the Solana Foundation's position on running Jito validators, and if Solana is supportive of running the Jito validators, why isn't it integrated directly into the code?
Well, so first of all, Foundations and Labs are two different organizations, right? And
okay, sorry. I meant Labs.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, so Labs, I think there's some desire definitely from Jito's end to integrate the code into the Labs client. It's just probably a question of priorities and time, especially right now where Labs is mainly focused on stability and creating a team that's doing more penetration testing and just all-around release testing. I don't think bringing in a lot of instability and sort of refactoring things to add some sort of a plug-in model for Jito is going to be their top priority at the moment. But I think longer term, that's something that makes sense, right? If I can sort of mix and match different features.
Of a resource type issue than a fundamental disagreement issue.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't think either team wants the current state where they produce a client and then Jito has to go and patch their changes back into the client and then, produce their own release. It's just more of a...
Which is what happens today.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So my I don't want to say objections to it. I was okay with it. Like there's a delay to running Jito, and it takes a little bit more effort on the validator side, which I got comfortable with because I'm running on testnet. Legends is running on testnet, but then I posed the question to our delegators, and they're like, I don't know. Don't do it right now. We're not sure about it. So I was like, okay, pause. We're gonna stop. Like operationally, I was okay with it, but then we stopped because the delegators had issues with it. And I don't know if any other, but I'm just kind of curious if anybody else has had similar conversations or is concerned about it. To be honest, from a technical perspective, I don't understand enough to have like technical objections to it, I guess. But some of my delegators did.
Yeah, fair enough. Zantetsu, do you have a question, comment?
Okay, so I don't run one yet, but I have analyzed it fairly extensively, including reading almost all their changes that they incorporate into the validator code base that you have to patch in, to run their version of the validator. There are a couple things I think are worthy to note. You already brought up the fact that there's a delay, and what you mean by that is that like the way Jito works is all they sort of provide a gate for all transactions to make it before it makes it to your validator. They call that the relayer. The relayer receives transactions instead of your validator. Okay, so when you run Jito, your validator advertises their relayer as your TPU port, not your own validator. So all your transactions get shuttled to this relayer client. And what the relayer does is it first sends the transactions off to Jito in Jito land somewhere, and they then forward it on to the searchers who have who have basically 200 milliseconds to find, you know, great transactions to make. And the relayer, after 200 milliseconds, then releases the transactions to your validator. So what that means is your validator gets all transactions with a 200 millisecond latency, basically half a slot or so. Now that's interesting, and everyone's got to decide whether they think it's worth like potentially slowing down all the, you know, the latency for all user transactions so that the searchers can get the benefit of being able to find arbitrages more easily, which is kind of Jito's sort of business, is what they're trying to enable. And that's a decision for everyone to make. And you should definitely and it sounds like you have let your stakers know about that potential drawback or trade-off. That alone, I think, would make it very difficult for Solana to just decide to wholeheartedly introduce such a scheme into their validator code base, because it's a significant thing to be done and require a tremendous amount of like discussion before they could do it. Another thing is, you know, the relayer itself. If you don't run your own relayer, you rely on Jito's relayer. And as far as I know, almost all people running Jito rely on Jito's relayer, which essentially means that they're now the source of all your transactions. Like, you don't even get the transactions. And that's kind of centralizing force. It means that they can, not that they would do this, but they could decide not to send you some transactions they don't like. They could censor their competitors' transactions. They could do anything. So you kind of should run your own relayer at a minimum if you're going to run Jito. But as I understand it, not many people do. So
I actually, no, that's a super great point. And actually, I may have said this incorrectly to stakers, delegators. I said that the Jito transactions can come in as ordered transactions and they have priority, but regular transactions also still come in. Is that not a correct statement?
If you're on your own relayer, you can be sure that that's happening, except there will be a delay on the you know, all the transactions. If you let Jito do it, if you trust them to forward all the transactions, then that's also true. They will also have a 200 millisecond delay, but you'll still get them. But again, you're trusting another source to essentially be this centralized mechanism for receiving and distributing transactions to you. And you got to decide also whether if you don't run your own relayer, and that's why I'm not going to enter Jito without running my own relayer. Like, I can understand someone who's got a very small stake or fairly low stake, you know, but my stake is high enough that I feel like as a responsibility for the network, I can't just leave it up to Jito personally. So that's one of the things that's holding me back. And I'm modifying the relayer because I don't like some of the things it does anyway. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna lie. The way that I generally make decisions on what I should be doing is I watch a few different people or a few different validators. Shinobi being one of them. And I'm like, oh, what's he doing? He's not. It may not be an automatic decision based on the 5 other ones that I watch. So I am watching closely, and I think I've followed most of your Discord conversations. So right now, though, as far as like the centralization concerns, my delegator said absolutely not. Don't do it. So,
well, you have some very educated delegators. Congratulations.
No, they're smarter than me, so it's a problem.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I have nothing against the Jito team or Jito as a concept. I personally would like it to be superfluous, and I'd like the network to be designed better so they don't need something like that. So I kind of view it as a short-term potential workaround. And more than that, I feel like I'm going to do it because I want to not shut down community-led efforts to make progress. That's the only reason, really the reason that I'm going to participate, is I feel like someone else is taking some initiative. They're trying to do something. I'll try to support that. But I hope that eventually it's obsolete, because it will improve the base Solana so that this kind of thing won't even be needed anymore. That's what I hope. Yeah,
so that's actually 100% exactly what they said. This should be built in. This should not be like a separate solution. And they kind of left it at that, like, hey, Sam, you can do what you want, but like, this should be built in, not like a separate solution that some people use and some people don't use. So yeah, thank you, Sam. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, I could talk all night. I have other points I can make, but I'll leave it up to other people to take some time.
No, if anybody else has any points on it, no. So I mean, I followed the Jito stuff. I guess since Lisbon, I've been watching them quite closely, and I'm like, these are some super smart guys that are involved in it. But honestly, it's a little, it's technically a little above my pay scale. So I've been reading a lot. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. Just to let everyone know, I'm hacking the relayer because I don't like that 200 millisecond delay. I understand that it's necessary to give searchers a time to search, but what I don't like is it means that in my last block of my leader slot, I'm going to be forwarding transactions that I could include in my slot to the next validator. And I'm like, screw that. So I'm making it so the last slot, I don't delay it. I just, Jito gets the first 3 blocks of my leader group and they don't get the 4th one. That's going to be my policy for Jito. You know, that's,
is there like a Zan release?
Well, no. Generally don't make this kind of thing public because I really don't want to be responsible for other people like
I'm joking.
screwed over in some way. But if it works, I will discuss this with the Jito team and let them understand what I'm doing and that there could be an interest in something like this. And if people are interested, then and it works, then certainly I will share it. It's not something I need to keep for myself, but I definitely would have to run it for a while and test it before I'd get to the point of wanting to do that.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think from the network health standpoint, you're potentially missing some transactions that you could have been executing on your, in your block. So
yeah, it's true. I mean, if they get forwarded, if you forward them to the next leader and the next leader's down, they could get like lost or who knows what happens. Right. Like for greatest resiliency in the network, I feel like the validator should handle all the transactions it can. So that's one of the things I'm trying to make happen in my own hack of their relayer code.
Makes sense. Yeah, any other thoughts or questions people have? I did want to bring up one thing. So the core dev sync that's been happening, I'm curious from a validator's point of view, if there's any feedback on that call, if people are finding them valuable or if they have anything they'd like to tweak about it. Yeah, just curious what people think about how that's going. It's too infrequent. Say more. You think is it too
You're talking
infrequent?
about the dev call, right?
Yeah, the dev sync, the one.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear more frequently what's going on. It feels like a month is too long of a time. There must be more happening in a month that we don't even hear about because it becomes old news by the time the meeting even rolls around. So I'd love to have it be bi-week, every other week instead of once a month personally. But it's a resource drain on Solana Labs time. So I understand it's up to them to decide how often they want to do it.
Yeah, I think that's the push and pull right now is, how much time people in labs can dedicate to it versus the community benefit. So, but yeah, I mean, that's good feedback. Any other thoughts, ways to maybe make the call more engaging to the community?
I don't think I've actually seen it before, so I don't. Is it announced in the channel, in the same announcement channel?
No, it's a different channel. So maybe that's another point that
yeah.
Stop sharing my screen. Yeah, I guess maybe another problem is that it's sort of announced in a different way. So there is I want to make sure I got the channel name right. Core community call channel.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. Just to be
core community call.
They do put announcements for like the meeting right before it happens in the typical announcements channel, but unless you're looking for that and prepared, you won't even notice.
But in validator announcements,
I'm pretty sure they put it.
It's not always in validator announcements. I did it maybe the first call, but yeah, there's a calendar, like a public calendar that's published for it. So you can add that calendar to your calendar and have it that way. But yeah, maybe having like a Discord announcement might be a good idea too, just because I think, at least from the validator point of view, a lot of people are used to that.
Or maybe advertise it a little bit more. I'm totally honest. I've never seen it. I try to pay attention, but maybe I missed it. I've never seen it before.
And just it's not meant to. I don't think it's meant to be a super like collaborative community of discussion thing. It's not like everyone has a voice. Only Solana Labs really, and people they specifically designate to be participants in that meeting because they have an agenda item to speak about, get speaking rights. So it's not like, it's not really a big free for all. And I think that's appropriate. It's really for Solana Labs to communicate and get feedback. I think that's what the meeting is for. So it's something to
that actually sounds interesting. But that sounds interesting. I've still never seen. I would give you my opinion if I'd ever seen it before, but I haven't yet.
Yeah. So I posted I think this is the first call that we had in the chat. I'm not trying to see on the fly here if we've got a playlist, but maybe we do not.
Oh, this is the YouTube.
Yeah. So that's the YouTube video of the first call.
Okay. A lot of people.
But yeah, like Zantetsu said, the basic idea of the call is for like core developers to discuss about specific topics that they're working on and to collaborate with other core developers in the ecosystem, like Jump Fire Dancer team, like Jito, like other people who are actively working on the code. So it's a little different than this call, which is more like community driven and kind of like soliciting feedback from everyone. This is a little bit more tightly focused. But yeah, good feedback. I think I can take that back to Jacob and figure out like ways to maybe to advertise it more. Anything else people want to bring up, discuss? No? All right. Well, thanks everyone. In 2 weeks, we'll have the earlier call. So it'll be at 11 a.m. Pacific for me, but localized to wherever you are, 12 hours before this time, 2 weeks from now. All right. Thank you, everybody.